Hello my friends, good morning or good evening to you. Wherever you are, whatever you are doing, you're doing amazing. And you have actually done something incredible because in 4 days you guys have delivered Christmas presents for the Ukrainian reconnaissance drone units in the value of 137,000. Now in January I will go to Kiev and I will deliver these Baba Yaga drones and 5 cars, 4 cars, however many cars we get out of this fundraiser. I will deliver them personally and hand them over, and I'll make a video for you. Now I will close this fundraiser tomorrow evening, midnight Estonian time. So if you still want to contribute, we're going to raise the goal to 150k and we're going to make an all-time record in the 69th Sniffing Brigade and in your fundraiser history also, and in your donation history also. This is the biggest fundraiser and the biggest Christmas present for Ukrainian units. And also, these Baba Yaga drones do deliver these bomb-looking Christmas presents for the Russian units. Link is in the description below. Let's get to 150. My friends, Dmitry, aka War translated a great report to us. This is a military blogger in Russia with a following of 500,000 people in Russia. That means he's big enough to be invited to Putin's annual table of military bloggers, where Putin tells these guys things they already know. Well, but today his report is very different. I'll read it to you, and in my view there's 2 options. Either he will fly out of the window for it, or this is controlled opposition by Putin, and I'll elaborate on that later. I'll read the report. Keep in mind, an extremely popular military blogger in Russia wrote this. The positional impasse, which both specialists and experts talk about so much, exists for everyone. But for us and the Ohoils, the Ukrainians, it has completely different nature. For us, it is primarily socio-political in nature. We cannot afford to suffer such losses as the Ohoils freely allow themselves, throwing cannon fodder to slaughter without accountability and responsibility to his people. So this military blogger is saying that Ukrainians are throwing people away and the Russians cannot afford to do this. This is straight criticism of Putin's military strategy of human wave zombie meat tactics. Does this help them? No, because readiness to suffer losses alone is not enough. You need a sufficient number of weapons to ensure a breakthrough of enemy defenses and ultimately solve the task. But the sponsors did not provide weapons. In defense, however, the Ukrainian armed forces having the same drones and still numerous artillery can hinder our movements near the front. And we cannot and should not solve this problem with human waves. Again, criticism points against Putin's military strategy. Very dangerous path for a Russian military blogger. How will it be overcome? As our resources and equipment accumulate and Ukrainians' resources decrease, they will eventually lose the ability to hold positions, at least in some directions. There, as a result, wedging and breakthroughs will occur, which would otherwise cost unnecessarily large losses. And this comes after the recent Avdiivka assaults, which claimed the lives of 7,000 to 8,000 Russians, KIA only assaulting Avdiivka. Over 200 armored vehicles lost also for the Russians. No, this will not happen automatically, and here political squabbles in NATO complicating the supply of weapons and our attacks on the rear and communications, complicating the delivery of what has been delivered to the front, become of particular more importance. Now, there is a lot of bogus in this, and there is also truth. The bogus part is that the Russians cannot afford to throw away this manpower like the Ukrainians. Well, the truth is the quite opposite, that the Russians are throwing away manpower. The true part here is that NATO's internal struggle. NATO is semi-unified. European Union is semi-unified. This video also would be a call to action to every people in EU and NATO and free democratic world that the goal here is not aiding Ukraine. The goal is to keep the rule-based world order, because Russia and BRICS are trying to change the world order. It is not a war in Ukraine. It is a new Cold War with the hottest part being in Ukraine right now, but it will spill out of there. There is Taiwan, there is the African theater. this will spill into Arctic. So the time to act is now. It's not in the future where United States would have to go directly in hot confrontation with the Russians. The time to act is now, when this war is still only in Ukraine. I have every motivation to say this because Estonia's country, my country, culture, language, my history, my family, everything is connected to Ukrainian fate. Not many people acknowledge this in Estonia or in the European Union, that their country's future is also connected to Ukrainian victory. So this is why I do everything in my power for Ukrainian victory. And I do call these viewers, you guys who are watching, you have the power because we live in democracies. You decide your country's outcome. You have the power. Be active. Follow this war. Don't become apathetic to it. Together we can do a lot for Ukrainian victory. Like this fundraiser. You guys donated close to 150k, and there are many people doing these fundraisers. I call upon you to be united. But now, my friends, I have another ad. And every time you see I have an ad, this is a very good day for me because YouTube revenue goes up and down. And luckily I do have patrons. But for me as a military blogger, the more security I have in funding, the more I can focus my mental energy and everything I have towards aiding Ukraine, which I will. So I bring you ExpressVPN. I do research a lot every morning before filming my Ukrainian updates, and sometimes I need to visit some sketchy sites for information. I need to protect myself on such occasions. This is why I use ExpressVPN. ExpressVPN reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers, so your internet provider can't see or log what you do online. No one can see your digital footprint. Using the internet without ExpressVPN is like taking a call on a train or bus on speaker for everyone to hear. Don't let your personal business become everyone's business. One of the easiest ways for brokers to aggregate data and tie it back to you is through your device's unique IP address, which also reveals information about your location. When you're connected to ExpressVPN, your IP address is hidden. That makes it much more difficult for data brokers to identify who you are. Being on the forefront of the information war between Russia and Ukraine, I need to protect myself, and ExpressVPN helps me do that. You can protect yourself by going to expressvpn.com/Artur. Through my link in the description below, you will get an extra 3 months of ExpressVPN for free. And now, my friends, elaborating on the previous topic of standing united, and this is not a war only in Ukraine, but a Russia's and BRICS war against the rules-based order of the free democratic world. Here is Russian propagandists talking about where the Russian border should be. We are in the phase of global reconstruction, in the phase of historical, civilized choice. And this choice is extremely simple, to be or not to be, Shakespearean one. And I love how the Russian propagandist goes to quote a British playwright from the 1600s. It is obvious that Russia and Russian world and our civilization choose to be. And to be means to solve all the issues you're talking about. To solve the issues of national security, the stability of our borders, the new borders of the multipolar world. And the issues of Russian borders, well, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Finland, Poland have never posed a threat for Russia as a country. All of these countries, as just mentioned, went into NATO voluntarily to defend themselves against Russian aggression. So securing Russian borders for Russian people as an interest would not be to occupy neighboring countries. It would be to become a good trading partner. That is the best way to secure your neighboring countries' borders and interests. But Russia has not been a good trading partner. It is all about economics, and Russia is not good at it. So the expansion of NATO, what many people see as a threat to Russia, should not be seen as a threat to Russia, but to be seen as a security decision for people who want to determine their own fates. Estonians, Latvians, Lithuanians, Finnish, we want to remain here and live here where we have lived for over 1,000 years. And NATO right now is the only way to achieve that goal. After all, we are now deciding where the Russian border between the West and Russia will be. And check this out, it gets juicy. They would like it to be somewhere near Rostov. No, my friends, no. Rostov is a Russian city inside Russia. Not very deep, but quite deep inside Russia in the western part. Now, no European country or nation wants Russian border to be pushed back. Nobody, even Estonians, like after the Estonian independence war of 1918, we, by the treaties signed with Russia, we're supposed to have more land than we do now. By this treaty, we're supposed to have 40 kilometers more from southern Estonia, which is now Russia. Now, Estonians are not disputing this because, you know why? Because we don't want it. It's full with Russians. Russians in Estonia, Putin-minded Russians in Estonia are an issue. Nobody wants to occupy Russia up until Rostov because nobody wants that area because Russians are a problem in other countries. So now this guy says they would like the Russian border be near Krakow. So this is a warning to the Polish people, to the Ukrainian people, and to the Baltics and Finnish. Their goals are the same as per Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact. So I have no illusions about this. The Baltics have no illusions about this. And I'm here as a representative of a small country in Northern Eastern Europe. I need your help in Western Europe and in the United States. Without your military support and unity, we would have a very hard time remaining democratic and free and not under Russian occupation. You have the power to do that, so please, stay united, help us. And now I want to talk about the topic of fear. I am not without fear. Every time I go to Kiev, 5 times I've gotten missile attacks, drone attacks. Last time it was the biggest one, 75 drones. I was afraid, and I have been every time I've been to Kiev. I'm afraid also here in Estonia. I'm afraid that my country will be overtaken, and I will fight with everything I have for that not to happen. I've done my conscription service, and when my country calls, I have to go. I trust Estonia's police force and the government, and I want to watch this video with you, which elaborates on fear, because during wartime, it's not the goal to not have fear. It's a goal to overcome your fear. Brave people are not those who are not afraid. Brave are those who overcome fear. Everyone is afraid. There are no people who are not afraid. People are mentally abnormal if they are not afraid of anything. People are afraid, but if you have to overcome this fear, this is not our first time in combat. We have already had battles, hard battles. Yes, it's scary. Yes, I will go and I will defend this territory. And you can see he's calm. He knows what he is in. He might be killed any day, any second. And he has made that choice. I have made that choice. I have one country, one language, and one culture. I have nothing else. I have my family. If I want to protect them, I have to make a similar choice. People in the Western Europe don't have to make that choice now. But if they don't make it now, they have to make it in the future where Russian border is near Krakow. So let's make the choice now, overcome our fears, unite and defend. Now, my friends, to further elaborate on Western unity, I am glad that in this video I can say compliments to Germany and Sweden, because in 2022 I always remember how Germans were the slowest to wake up in Europe. The governments of Germany didn't really want to send aid. They sent helmets, they sent bulletproof vests, but they were against sending weapons. Well, now I'll read you a report and I'll elaborate on it. Germany and Sweden have announced new aid packages for Ukraine, thereby supporting the Ukrainian president's meeting in the US during the US internal political deadlock. US internal political deadlock is a very important wording here, because when US has internal strife, which is okay because every country does in a democratic world, this is how the system works. Well, Germany has woken up to the fact that we in Europe cannot rely on United States help, because United States has the whole world to police. And we cannot be naive enough to think that these good people of the United States of America should be responsible for helping us out all the time. So it's time for us to wake up and defend ourselves. Germany has taken on the role of Ukraine's main supporter, attempting to show that supporting Ukraine is necessary for Europe, even if the US cannot participate in the campaign. Thank you, German people and German governance, for doing this. Germany is the key to Europe. Right now, the most powerful country in Europe, and I'm so glad they have finally woken up. Dankeschön, my friends. And now, my friends, a word to the United States, defense companies and people who work for these defense companies. This is Zelensky meeting the CEOs of United States defense companies, and I'll skip to the part where he starts to talk to them in English. And I think it's pretty important.
Thank you so much. I'll be happy to be in dialogue today. For us, it's very important during the war that to know and to share details of the war, and to share real, very concrete things, what we need and where you already helped us. That's why I want to thank you, all of you and your partners. And of course, please pass from me messages to your workers, people who really work and they did a lot for Ukraine. Just one, less we are facing to this war as unprovoked war, and we understand that without such people, companies, and such workers, and we really couldn't manage and save our land. And we are very thankful that we have such friends.
Yes, and I do stand behind every word Zelensky said here, putting aside whichever opinions you have about Zelensky or Ukrainian political system. In the end, for me, it is simple. It is Ukraine's freedom and my country's freedom. They are tied together and they are directly connected to people in the US, people who work for these defense companies. If you, for example, have worked for any kind of Lockheed Martin, Boeing, or any other Raytheon military defense company, the weapons you might have been connected to making are directly responsible for Estonia being able to be free. So thank you. My friends, I have a little call to action to you. If you have any kind of expertise in drone warfare, drone engineering, or drone programming, even if you work in defense industries, then please write to me. My email is right on the screen. I would love to know more about it, and I have no education in the area, so I am very open to learning. I have some questions. I ask them from you in the email, and you can answer in the email. Hit me up. Let's talk about drones. Russia has an election next year, and you might think that Russia is an authoritarian, dictatorial state, a terrorist state. Why is Putin playing this democratic game? Well, this is his rules of engagement in political theater. He goes through the motions of free democratic elections. Of course, they are not free. He announced his candidacy for president, and I know it sounds stupid and odd and funny, but yes, he did, and he's actually doing a presidential campaign. Weird. He will be president for the rest of his life. Why would he do a campaign? But he is doing it, and to gather the support and popularity from his people. Very often now, in the past 2 weeks, he's been speaking publicly among the people, to the people, the goal of which is to wake people a little bit up to the political thinking. Now, people in Russia have been propagandized and brainwashed not to think for themselves. Putin is waking them up a little bit for the upcoming presidential election, but this is a double-edged sword. Putin's goal is to gain popularity. But if people wake up a little bit, this also opens them up for SBU's, Ukrainian Intelligence Services, info ops in Russia, which SBU is doing. So Putin is playing with fire here. Waking up your people in such times, very dangerous. But now let's talk a little bit about how Russia is steering very strongly back to the Soviet times. Putin's high times for him in his head were back in the Soviet times. For some reason, I don't know, it's nostalgia or it's a twisted mindset. But he wants and does every kind of small decision to go back to that, former glory of the Soviet Union. A country where people had to stand in lines for hours to buy bread at the end of the Soviet Union, and nothing was available in stores. It was a horrible time, horrible time. On December 11th, significant changes of the use of foreign passports took effect in Russia. The official Russian passport does not serve as a travel document outside of the country. To travel abroad, Russian citizens must apply for a separate foreign passport, which was issued with relatively few restrictions before the outbreak of the war in Ukraine. The Soviet-era system allowed Russian services to more easily control their citizens' movements. And I do remember, because during the Soviet times, also the sports groups, they were allowed to go abroad and compete in behalf of the Soviet Union, but they were always interviewed before and after by the KGB, and they were brainwashed. Don't believe anything you see in the West, it's all fake. The reality is it was true. The Western stores were filled with stuff, and Soviet stores were empty, and all the sportsmen who came back in the 80s and 70s from West Germany, they couldn't believe it. Oh my God, how can they have so much meat in the stores or bananas? We don't have that stuff here. And KGB was always saying, don't believe it, it's a show for you. But Putin is going back to it. People have to go to interviews to get this foreign passport, and they can only go abroad by the blessing of Putin, by the blessing of this FSB new branch. What does this new change imply? Why does Putin need a thorough, stronger control over the people who are leaving Russia? Is that he has new mobilization plans. Why other way you would want to stop your people from leaving to better lands, to Western Europe or America? Because you want to keep them there because you need to use them as cannon fodder. Putin will not do a new mobilization before his election because that would be very unpopular. But after his election, for some reason, he plays this democratic game, still trying to gather support and not make unpopular decisions before. After his elections, there will be a new mobilization, limited mobilization, and then men cannot leave the country because of this new law. It is criminal to leave the country then. So this is what to expect in 2024 in Russia. Mobilization. Now, my friends, my favorite part of the video, butchering of the Patreon names. And if you do want to send me a message and expect a reply every day, well, that's Patreon for you, because I answer Patreon messages every day now. YouTube comments, there are too many of them for one human to read and react. I read them, but I cannot always answer to them. So Patreon is a way to talk to me. Gay Man, Kaptain Max, Mark Raikhe, Klaus Lohte, Bislia Beremogi. Bislia Beremogi, well, in Kirillitsa. Thank you, Bislia Beremogi. If you like my channel, Patreon link is in the description below. And until my next update, my friends, which will be tomorrow, Slava Ukraini, and bye-bye.